Because targets are never just military, we're talking about civilian as well. And civilian is beyond critical infrastructure. It can be media, it can be hospital, it can be hospitality, it can be a lot of other things that can affect the public opinion and the public view of things. Physical and logical protections as a defensive side should be considered as a last act of defense, all right? And the ability to shut down a service voluntarily while preventing access from civilian population is in the book of acts and tactics to retain that survivability of the service or whatever it is. So this should be considered a valid tactic in terms of defense, actually shutting down things or preventing access to fight against the DDoS or whatever it is. Okay, so we've covered cyber war, attack, defense, fairly easy. Let's talk about cybercrime before we connect the two. If this doesn't show up when you're talking about cybercrime, you're doing it wrong. All right, you're missing something. Look for this. Very easy. All right, and you might be surprised sometimes. I was, gotta tell you, surprised a lot of times when this popped up in weird places. So this is in my book, Definitions of Cybercrime. These guys work. These guys are like the Gordon Geckos of the crime world. They have a very well organized, methodical infrastructure and hierarchy. And they work just like any Fortune 500 company. There's the CEO, there are VPs, there are marketing channels, there are guys on the ground, there's an IT department. They outsource a hell of a lot of stuff because it's cheap and it's easy. And again, check out the talk from last year to get some more information on how this actually works in terms of cybercrime. In terms of attacks, this is the stuff that we're all kind of seeing all the time, every day. Usual channels, web, mail, open services, where we get all the spam and the malware and the PDFs and stuff like that steals our social security numbers and runs transactions for us. Targeted attacks are going to happen on premium resources, all right? I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say it. Google and stuff like that is a prime target, all right? Specific companies with specific assets are prime targets. F-35. Carpet bombing is going to be used for most attacks. The standard ops are going to be, with the farming and fishing and stuff like that. But they're going to be very, very geographically targeted. All right, because you can't send Bank of America spam to guys in France, and you can't send Deutsche Bank spam to customers in the UK. So everything is very, very geographically targeted and segmented in terms of marketing. Hence, again, the structure above it. All right, you're going to have bodies or organizations specializing in specific regions. Secondary infections will happen through the initial ones. So once you get a foothold on one asset or on one organization or market segment, it's usually going to be based to pivot off additional attacks. This is how it looks like. And again, this is from last year. Sorry for not updating this. These are the effects of a single criminal server in terms of the sites that it infected or compromised to carry on their attacks. Okay, so we mapped out, we lit up a point. This is obviously an approximation. It's not like for every domain and URL that was compromised to include malicious attack code, and we put it geographically. Now you have to remember that server from last year did cater for at least 5 different criminal organizations. All right, this is like SaaS for criminals. So everyone was running their own regional thing, and again, you can kind of see that with the focus on east and west coast of the U.S., the western part of Europe, and some scattered attacks, East Asia, Australia, and some of Brazil and South America. This is how it looks like in terms of the actual groups. All right. Once you start tracking back, whose account is it on the server? that runs the attack on those URLs and whose account is another one, and you map it out with intelligence information from law enforcement and your own kind of open source intelligence, you can kind of focus down on the groups that actually run the criminal operations. So again, it's not a big surprise. These groups specialize in their specific geographical regions. In terms of ammunition, this is one of my favorites, Zeus, if you don't know it. If you want a copy, just ping me. Very easy, all right? And this still baffles like 99% of AVs. If you click here, build loader, you're going to get a new copy of the actual Trojan, the executable, with a very, very low detection rate. And if it's not low enough for you, just click again. And again, and again, and again. You can test it on VirusTotal or test it yourself. It's got a GUI. I mean, seriously. It's got a config file. You tell it what you want to do, which websites you want to attack, which websites you want to alter on the user's browser. This is, all right, and again, I'm going to get a lot of crap for it, an APT. It's an advanced persistent threat. It stays on PC. It goes fairly well undetected, and it's very advanced. You can do a lot of neat stuff with Zeus. It's got a web portion to it as well. That's the command control center. So every bot, every instance of that loader that you've built that gets installed on a victim's machine pops up here. You can filter this by, again, geographical regions. You can group them together to form different administrative groups. This caters for multiple users. So you can have, and again, you can have different permissions for different users managing this system. This is, you know, this is the shit. You can drill down, obviously, issue commands, look at the data that was harvested from those PCs. You can filter them by connection speed so that you can group the fastest connections into a group called DDoS and the slowest ones for a group called check later, and so on and so forth. It's very easy to use. Again, you don't need to be like an Uber hacker from DEF CON to do this. You can be, you know, my mom. This is fire and forget. Defense. Again, I hate those signs, but you know, what can you do? We have antivirus, malware, spyware, rootkit, Trojan. Tons of companies that make a lot of money. But seriously, when was the last time you've seen one of those actually work against a really, really good threat? All right, this is, again, I've just ran the click loader thing, the build loader thing, and you can very easily go to this, get to this stage where the results are 0 out of 42 antiviruses that detected this as malicious, not even suspicious. All right, we are lacking on the defense side. And then you have guys saying, well, but we have firewalls and IDSs and IPSs and stuff that runs on the network with agents and Tron and stuff like that. But seriously, all of that, those attack vectors go through port 80 and 443 and 53. And what happens over SSL? Your IPS and IDS is blind to most of the encrypted stuff that goes on your network. You don't even know what's going on there. You want your IDS to do something about it? Yeah. So we have a problem. How do these two connect? I've talked about cybercrime, I've talked about cyber war, and my claim is that cybercrime is being used to conduct cyber war. All right? These are the dirty workers of the governments that carry out their, you know, nasty attacks. And I can claim this all day, but without proof, we're going to go nowhere. So again, I'm only going to talk about stuff that I can attest to, that I've seen, that I have data for. You're going to probably want to say, hey, Ian, you missed this and that. And fine, I might have, but I haven't seen like actual data from it, so I'm not going to include it here. One of the things, you know, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about cyber war is Estonia. It's been bashed to death. And I don't feel like talking about it because it's fairly boring. And it didn't have a real kinetic act in it. So yes, a lot of people made their careers over, you know, analyzing